Hey everybody, it's Eric Malice here, Chief Product Officer for National Test Systems. So a couple months ago when I posted my blog post about using a fentanyl test as a surface or powder test, it seems like I got a few more questions than answers. People kind of didn't have an exact idea of, how I was talking about getting this done. So I figured the best way to do this would actually be a physical demonstration here. Now, of course, my blog post was about fentanyl. Of course, I don't have access to fentanyl, which is good. But luckily, my wife was kind enough to donate one of her 0.25 milligram Xanax. So we're going to go ahead and do it today with benzodiazepine test. So of course, the principle is exactly the same. So regardless of what powder, you can do these same steps in order to do a powder or a surface test. Now, you do have to keep in mind that each test is only targeting a specific drug. So if this were a fake Xanax and was made of fentanyl, then my benzo test would definitely not pick that up because it's only going to react if the target I'm using is a benzodiazepine for this particular test. So a couple things here. Obviously, we've got our benzodiazepine test. We've got a little straightened out paper clip there just in case I need to do any stirring. And then we've got our buffer solution. So there's two different methods that you can do this. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to break this guy in half in case I make a mistake and I need to do this over. I'll still have half a benzo left to do it. Another nice thing about this is it shows you really how little amount of powder needs to be present for you to be able to detect it. So I think that's important to note as well. So the first methodology would be if you found a chunk or you found a little baggie of something, enough that you could actually scoop something out of there. So if that's the case, so we're going to go ahead and further break this benzo a little further. Break it in half if we can, or at least a little piece of it off. Here we go, a couple little pieces. So the first instructions say is you're going to take the piece that we found, and we're going to drop it into the bottle. Put the lid back on, and we're going to shake it. While we're shaking this, let's go ahead and open up our benzodiazepine single panel test. Get that ready to go. A little bit more shaking. We're really looking to hope to see if we can see it getting cloudy, meaning the pill is dissolving in there. And we can see some of that cloudiness. Maybe not so much on this overhead camera, but definitely see some cloudiness. So the next instructions would say, take the cap off, unscrew the little squeeze lid, and then put a few drops of the buffer solution mixed with our benzo into the lid of the test. So I'm just going to put about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops, should be plenty. And we're going to go ahead and insert the test into the lid. Now, luckily, I didn't put too much in, so it didn't overflow and hit my hand. But now we're just going to go ahead and lay this flat on our surface. And in the meantime, we should start to see something wicking. Wicking, again, is when the liquid is drawn up the strip or migrates up the strip, like you see with every other instant test that you've run. So we're waiting that one to do its thing. I'm going to go ahead and prepare our surface test. So another nice thing about this is if you find residue or powder on a desktop or on a desk or somebody's workstation, wherever you might find some powder or something that you were suspicious or you want to test it to see if it is X drug. And again, we're talking about a benzo and we're talking about a benzo test. So we're not going to detect anything that's not a benzo in this particular instance. This out of here so I don't get it wet. Just leave that off screen for now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this little quarter of benzo. Remember, this benzo is only 0.25 milligrams. It's the lowest dosage they have. So it's not a lot of drug or substance that we're talking about. I'm going to grind that in a little to my $5 pie dish. Okay, so now you can see you've got a little bit of powder residue. I've seen this, if you work in residential or anything like that, or corrections, you've seen suspicious smears of powder around. So this gives you a way to test it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and get another benzo test out. Now, the instructions for the powder test suggest that you first would rub the strip onto the powder, and then like we did with the other one, you're going to pour the liquid, the buffer, into the lid and do the test that way. In my opinion, the much easier way to do it, and again, here's the buffer we're waiting on that we've already mixed. So this other one is going to be a fresh buffer. So my suggestion for you guys is to take it, put 3 drops. Hope this shows up on the camera. 1, 2, 3 drops on there. Then we're going to take our handy dandy bent paper clip, And we're just going to mix that up a little bit. We're going to try and get that powder in there to dissolve into the 3 drops of buffer solution that we just placed on our surface. And it's a little cloudy. You can still see some chunks, but it really doesn't take that much. Every drug dissolves at a different rate, so to play it safe, you might want to wait as long as possible to make sure it is fully dissolved. Once we have it dissolved enough, we're going to go ahead and dip our test right into the little puddle we made that's been mixed with the powder that we found on the surface. Do a little bit on both sides. You want to try and suck as much of those 3 drops up as you can. As you do this, you'll start to see the liquid migrating up the strip, and that should tell you that you do have enough liquid in here for the test to function. All right, good. Now we've got some wicking here, so we're going to go ahead and place this on, the lid on, and set it aside. Now, unfortunately, in our other experiment, it looks like we don't have any wicking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this other buffer that was still had the benzos mixed. I'm going to shake it up a little more, pull the lid back off, add, let's do like 6 or 7 drops this time, just to make sure we've got enough liquid in here. Keep in mind the concentration of the benzo or the substance in this liquid is pretty consistent. So simply adding more adding more liquid into the lid to test isn't going to affect the results anyway. It's just going to let us see that we have enough liquid now for the test to migrate up the strip correctly. All right, so we're waiting on that one. Here is the one that we did with the surface itself. And let's see, maybe I'll get a better shot on this camera. Sure, it's taking its time focusing, of course. Let's try this camera then. And it's not quite clear, but you can see we've got a positive result here on this benzo single panel test. So that indicates that medicine, or that pill that I had and it just crushed up, was indeed a benzodiazepine. And again, they read just like a regular urine test. You're going to see 2 lines for negative, control line for positive, or no control line for an invalid result. All right, so this one looks good. Set that one aside. We see our first test that I corrected is now wicking, and we should be able to get that result here in just a minute. It is a little slow because we had a lot more concentration of powder in this one than that, so it's a little bit thicker. It's a higher specific gravity. And let's see if we can get a clear view of this one. Yeah, not the greatest view, but you can see that we do have a nice control line, and we have nothing showing up in the test area. So again, both methodology that we used to determine if that powder that we found on the surface or in a baggie or wherever we found it, we were able to make the determination using a standard benzo test, which is a very inexpensive buffer solution, and we were able to get the results that we were looking for on both of these. So hopefully that clears up some of the confusion around testing surfaces or residue for drugs of abuse. And again, the important thing to realize is if you suspect fentanyl and you do a fentanyl test, if it's not fentanyl, it's not going to tell you what it is. It'll just tell you whether that is fentanyl or not. So while some folks are using these for, let's say, harm reduction, bring us your heroin and we'll tell you if there's fentanyl in it. Yeah, that's fine, but it's not going to tell you if it's also got methamphetamine, if it's also got, kind of a million other impurities that the target is not going to tell you. It's only going to tell you whether or not the target drug that you are looking for is in that powder. So again, hopefully that clears some things up. If you still have questions or you want to get started with this, please reach out. Feel free to reach out to me or one of your consultants. And until next time, keep on testing.